Good afternoon. I'm Chris Oelerich. I'm one of the members of the Veteran Scene podcast. I decided today that I wanted to do one on my own because of not just my military background, but I have taken advantage of benefits that the VA has to offer. And I also made some horrible mistakes in the process. It took me forever to sign up. Anyway, in 1968, I was 18 years old. I left school. I was going full time. I had a deferment because I thought I'd save my money and I would go at full time in Illinois in the fall. I was going to night school at the time. And I was drafted a week later. My next door neighbor was a retired lieutenant colonel, caught me in the driveway. And he had been made aware of this by my parents. And he said to me, listen to what I have to say. He said, you are going to go to basic training. You're going to go to OCS. You're going to become an infantry second lieutenant. You're going to go to Vietnam, and you are going to die. And he had my attention with that. So from there, he said, now this is what you are going to do today. You are going down and you are going to apply for Warrant Officer Flight School, which I did, and I was accepted. I went to Fort Polk, Louisiana, which I believe at the time was one of the hellholes of the world. I went from there to Fort Walters, Texas, then to Fort Rucker, Alabama for the final time in flight school. And from there, I got my 20-day leave and I went directly to Vietnam. Landed at Cam Ranh Bay with my friend Jim Nowicki, who both of us went to flight school together. And from there, they shipped us up to Nha Trang. I used to wonder about profiling because everybody in the room that we were with was called. They went from A to Z and they left the N and the O. And at that point, the man that was making the assignment said to us, Nowicki, Oelerich, you're going to the cab. Good luck. And he walked out of the room. And Jim and I then went to Pleiku. We were flown over to Pleiku the following day. They took us over there on a helicopter, and we waited there for a day or so. And then they sent us down to Phan Thiet because we had been assigned to B Troop. The 717th Cav units were essentially they were not connected to anyone. We were unassigned, and we did not know this at the beginning, but they did interdiction and counterinsurgency and search and destroy work. So when you're in an unattached unit, that's it's not the greatest thing in the world. But we went to Phan Thiet. And as we went from one group, from the gunship pilots to the lift pilots, each one would tell us to stay away from the scout pilots, that we didn't want to have anything to do with them. And Jim and I, being the rocket scientists that we were at the time, went and had a drink with the scout pilots. And the next day we woke up and we were scout pilots. And so Jim and I both flew scouts. I flew scouts for my entire tour. So it was just the way things worked out. Anyway, we went from Phan Thiet. We moved shortly after we were there up to Pleiku, and we were working out of Pleiku, and we were flying over near the border, and we were doing counterinsurgency work on the border. And then we would work for anyone that had a problem. Someone called and they were pinned down. They would call us. If they thought they were going to be overrun, they would call us. And then we would come in and we would do the work that we did. So we were working out of Pleiku for a while, and then all of a sudden, I was shot down in August of '69 out near a place called Kon Tum, and I was picked up. A friend of mine named Greg Fuller, I was flying off him at the time. I was a relatively new scout pilot, and he picked me up because I don't think to get a Huey into the hole I went into. And so shortly after that, we moved to a place called Bambi Thuot. And we were working out of Bambi Thuot and working almost exclusively for the 5th Special Forces. We were working right on the Mekong River. In fact, we could see the NVA on the other side of the river. We'd fly out there. We were not allowed to shoot at them and not allowed to go into Cambodia. We had to wait for them to come to us. So we were there 5.5 months. And during that time, we ended up leaving a group of guys in a field. We found out the hard way about the leave no one behind. My friend Jim Nowicki did 3.5 years in the infamous Hanoi Hilton. And there were several other guys. They gave him back. They were shot up so bad they had to sign agreements that they were aggressor agreements or whatever it was. But anyway, we went through that whole period. But it was an interesting thing down in the Bambi Tuot area because we saw things, or I saw things that I never, that just they were mind boggling. I saw bravery that I absolutely couldn't believe. People did things that I didn't know they were capable of doing it. I mean, I knew soldiers did things that were brave, but I saw things that were unreal. One, my friend Jim carried a guy on his back for 3 days until the NBA caught him. But I also saw violence. I didn't know that violence like that even existed. I saw violence on a scale. It was just unbelievable. Saw things that just that impacted me. I saw a murder at one time. I saw a young boy shot right in front of me, and everybody just walked away. We walked away like it was nothing at the time because you become so desensitized to all these things. Anyhow, we moved back. We moved back to Pleiku. I finished my tour out there, and we continued to work the border the entire time. And then in May of 1970, I went home, and I became an instructor, Fort Rucker, Alabama, instructing transitions into the OH-6 LOACH. And then one day they called us all in, and they said, "This is the deal. You go back to Vietnam right now, frozen category, may go back to the same unit and same place, or you get out today." So I got out. I chose to get out. I just felt that if I went back, I'd be killed based on the type of work that I did. So I got out of the Army and just continued to live just like I did when I was in the Army, which was as a horrible drinker. And it carried on like that until 1973 when I woke up one day and I said, I can't live like this anymore. Mm-hmm. And what I ended up doing at that time, I just said to myself, this is it. I'm done. And I had a friend of mine that had gone to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was just absolutely didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do about it. And I called him up and he said, well, why don't you try this and come with me? And I said, all right, fine, I'll go. And there I am 50 some years later. I haven't had a drink. And one of the things that happened when I was there is that I was around for a while, not just the first day I got there, second day. I mean, I was there for a while, and all of a sudden I came to believe that this was a God-given event, this sobriety thing. I wasn't drinking. I didn't have an urge to drink. And I try to tell people that I'm about as basic guy as you'll ever find anywhere. I mean, I'm not out preaching on the corner. That's not the way I live. But anyway, I went through and I started working the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I knew that I had some real serious issues. So one of the steps was that you believe you'll be restored to sanity. And I genuinely believe that a power greater than myself would do that. And all of a sudden things started to get better. And then I started to practice the rest of the steps of the program. And my life could get better and better and better. Work-wise, I was working. I was doing well. I made the biggest mistake in my life, and I got married right after I got sober, like 2 weeks after. And 7 years later, I ended up divorced, and that's the way that it should have been. In 1979, I had started a trucking company, and I was making money like it was coining it. Even by today's standards, I was making a lot of money, huge amount of money. And I was offered a job, a flying job. And I didn't know where it was. And they told me there were no citizenship problems and they would take my transportation. And there was no taxes. And they gave me a telephone number of a lieutenant colonel out in LA when I got there. And I wasn't going to enough meetings and I wasn't really doing what I was supposed to do at the time. And I went to an AA meeting to lie to my original sponsor and walked in the door. There's a girl standing there. And 45 years later, here we are, still married. But during that time, I had never gone and registered at the VA. And it took me 37 years. And I started to have physical issues take place. I have lung disease from Agent Orange. It's called bronchiectasis. It's from Agent Orange and bacterial exposure. And I also have incredibly severe injuries from when I was shot down. I ended up getting, when I finally did register with the VA, I ended up getting 100% disability from combat injuries. A broken neck, a broken back, a broken hip, a broken hand. And as I used to say, when the flight surgeon had me come in, and a 20-year-old with enough alcohol in him feels no pain. And he said, how do you feel? And I said, I feel fine. And he signed me off to fly. I flew the rest of my tour like that. And I had adopted a very healthy lifestyle because when I did in 73, I quit everything. I stopped smoking, drinking, no drugs, no pot, no hash, no nothing. And I was never a big user of that stuff anyway. I was more, my choice was to drink myself stupid. But anyway, in, in about 1995, I got started to get very, very sick. And I didn't know what it was, and I kept going to doctors, not VA doctors, but I went to regular doctors, and they kept telling me it was bronchitis, it was asthma, it was this, it was that, and I ended up finally going to a hospital in Denver, National Jewish Health, which is a pulmonary hospital, and they told me what it was, and they said exactly where I got it and what it was from, and then they told me what I had to do if I wanted to have a life like everybody else, and so I did that. And that was when I first registered at the VA. And it was 37 years after Vietnam. And they were stunned because they said, "Why did you take so long?" And I lied to them. I said, "Well, I just didn't need to. Well, I didn't want to go there because I was afraid if someone asked me what had gone on through my mind and what had happened, that I would be locked away." So I never went. And then uh, I went for a physical, and then they sent me for a psych eval. And the doctor in there, she said, "How do you feel today?" And I said, "I feel great." She said, "Are you having any issues?" I said, "No, no issues today." And she said, "Okay, good. You're on your way. Have a nice day." So I left. And then um, I had some other things start to take place. I had a lot of nerve issues from the back and the neck and everything. And ultimately, uh, I started to see doctors at the VA. And what I found out was that soldiers and ex-military people, if you go to a VA hospital, if it's things they deal with, there's no better care in the world. I have received some of the most incredible care you can imagine. I mean, and advice. Uh, I go, I'm taken care of. Uh, that I didn't have any idea what the benefits that were available to me early on. I mean, I didn't have a clue. I didn't know that I could get hearing aids. And I was so deaf from the gun out the side of the door. I had a minigun on my aircraft and no doors, and the turbine engine just eats your hearing up. And I had no idea about that. I got hearing aids, and I can actually hear sometimes. Um, I get eyeglasses. When I reached 60% at one point for my lungs, and they it just they took care of my medical and scripts and so on. So to me, the VA is probably one of the most valuable assets ex-military can have. To sign up at the VA, it's nobody's going to lock anybody away. To go in for the physicals. I mean, I've had the psych eval since then because I had a lazy VSO once sent me for a psych eval instead of putting it for my lungs. And after 2 hours of entertaining the shrink, she said, "If you pretty much figured things out for yourself." And then I had one other little episode come up because her comment was, "PTSD is the gift that keeps on giving," and it does. And then I had one other little incident with it, and then we went through the whole thing with the suicide ideations too. I had one time I had a real uh, issue with the suicide issue. It was just one thing came up. It was like a video played on a video right in front of me, and pictured myself sitting there all dressed up, sticking a gun in my side of my head. And this shrink she sent me, she said, "Do you have a gun like that?" And I said, "Of course I do. I hike in the mountains. You can't hike in the Colorado mountains without a gun, especially where I was out in the wilds of Colorado." But anyhow, they I worked my way through all of these things. And she asked me what I did, and I told her, I said, "I pulled off the road as soon as it happened. I was driving into town. I lived in Glenwood Springs, Colorado at the time. And I told her, I said, I pulled off the road. I pray, I meditate. I just got to take it away. And I said, "It goes away." And she said, "Well, how long have you been doing that?" And I said, "A long time, a long time." And I said, "What's happened is," I said, "everything became benign memories. They're all still there. There's not a thing I don't remember, but I'm not haunted anymore." But what I did, I don't tell people that what I did is for everyone. It's not for everyone. It's what worked for me. But what I do tell people is, don't be afraid to look at everything that's out there. If you're having a problem and you're stalled and you're not making any additional headway that you think you should be, look at other things. See what other people are doing. Ask people what they're doing. And one little piece of what they're doing might be the thing that gets you over the hump. And the last thing you want to do is have this thing get you. In my case, in 2013 is the first time I ever saw the suicide rates. And I was mortified by it, the 22 a day at the time. And it was 70% were above 50, which put me right in that category. And then at the same time, I had a friend of mine. Now, we were all warrant officers together. He took a direct commission. He retires a full colonel after 30 years, and he killed himself. I was devastated. And my wife said, why don't you write about what you've done with your life? So I wrote a book on frontline combat soldiers, PTSD and frontline combat soldiers, and how I have lived. I mean, I have 45 years. I'm married this year. I have 2 great kids. Neither of them have any problems with anything. I have great grandkids. I have 3 grandchildren. I mean, this is my life. My life has just gone on. And one decent thing after another has happened in my life. Today, I live in Las Vegas. I have a ball. Las Vegas is actually a wonderful place to live. Beside the fact that it's dry and it's hot. And that's what I need, is hot and dry for the lung problems that I have. But anyway, that's what I can't stress enough. If you're getting out of the Army or the Navy or the Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, whatever it is, if you're discharged, go and register with the VA. Because if you do have a problem and you picked something up along the way, it's imperative that you see these people. Because if it's a military-related problem, they know how to deal with it. And they deal with it like no one else. And the care is just incredible. That's pretty much how I have done things. That's how I live. I'm happy that I was allowed to come out and do this today. And I look forward to any time that I might be able to help anybody. That's what I would like to do. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you for watching Veteran Scene. We would like to invite our fellow veteran friends to inquire with the VA about the many services they offer, as well as extend the invitation to those who would like to share their stories with us in our project. Please visit us online at veteranscene.org for extra resources and information. Reach out to us if you are interested in being a part of our journey. Thank you, veterans, for your service.